Hello, writer, and welcome back to my life. Writer Wednesday, where I give you my best tips and advice on the art and the business of writing and tell you how to do what to do as an indie author. As per usual, today we're answering a question from one of my $5 patrons on Patreon, and today's question comes to us from thatninja, who asks, how do you write villains without relying on problematic short code, rape, racism, etc. to define why they are evil? Thanks for the question, thatninja. I really like thatninja. So my first answer to this question is that I want to be clear when I start out that I don't see any problem with writing villains that are problematic, okay? I'm gonna stick with me. I'm going to answer the question of how not to do it in a minute, but I just want to clarify right off the bat that I'm totally fine with writing villains that are problematic. Some people might think, oh, it's too easy to just have the villains in your story be Nazis because we all know that Nazis are evil, right? But then you look at the world and you're just like, maybe people need a reminder. Maybe we need more narratives about how awful Nazis and white supremacists are. I don't know. There's just some things happening in the world today that make me feel like this might still be a necessary thing. Yes, this gets into politics. Yes, it gets into issues like social justice and all that sort of thing. But to me, politics is like theme. Talked about theme a lot in Writer Wednesday and on the YouTube channel in general. And theme is going to be in your work whether you put it there intentionally or not. Politics is the same thing. It is impossible to produce any work of art or anything else that is completely free from politics. Politics can always be read into it. Social justice issues can always be read into it. I mean, you can argue against how it shouldn't be done, and you can say, oh, well, that shouldn't be a factor in judging the quality of work. But people are still gonna do it. So in my opinion, since it's going to happen to your work anyway, you might as well just be intentional about it. And that goes for both theme and politics. If people are gonna find themes in your work, then put themes in your work intentionally that are the sort of themes that you want people to find in. And if people are gonna put politics and social justice issues into your work anyway, educate yourself. Become more intelligent when it comes to these topics so that you can put them into your work in a way that you want them to be read. And never ever forget that saying, I don't want anybody to view my work through a political lens is a political statement. And the more privileged you are, the more political the statement becomes. I'm just telling this to you as a fact of life. Again, this is something that is true. You can think that it shouldn't be, but it is. Returning to the question being asked, to me, there is nothing wrong with saying that problematic behavior is villainous. There's nothing wrong with having your villain do truly reprehensible things that do show a level of privilege and abuse of power and abuse of people who are more marginalized than your villain is. Some people might say it's lazy to just have your villain be an out-and-out racist, but again, it seems like some people don't have the message yet that that's not okay. And you can still have it be clever and interesting and avoid really any accusations of being lazy if your villain is more subtle about it. If someone thinks it's lazy to just have your villain be a member of the KKK, have them still be racist, but like in a more subdued and subversive way. Like if you want to be subtle about it, just a wild and crazy example here, have your villain or villains be, the epitome of white male privilege. And then, and again, just totally crazy hypothetical, have them be opposed to the good guys who are all women or people of color or women of color. And nobody has to say that there's a racial or misogynistic undertone there, but there is. Obvious examples aside, there are lots and lots of times where this has been done to great success, and you can be putting that sort of political message in your work that's not a beating the audience over the head with it sort of a thing. So that avoids what, as you said, can be the more problematic aspects of that type of storytelling, and definitely will avoid any accusations of being lazy, unless people accuse your main character of being a Mary Sue. For no goddamn reason. I mean, we're not talking about any story in particular. Okay, so that's all the answers as to why you should not be afraid to have your villain have like truly reprehensible, problematic behavior. They are your villain. But if you want your villain to be interesting or evil and avoid all of these sorts of things, although again, remembering that you will never be able to entirely avoid it, then you have to have a very primal reason for why they are still the villain in your story. Because if they're not doing something evil in the sense that it's evil on the broad societal scale in which we exist, then it has to be evil in a more universal human way. Like if they want to kill the hero of the story, and the hero of the story is a good person, that's evil. Although even in that scenario, it's like you get into the thing where, like, you can't avoid politics entirely because you want to avoid harmful stereotypes or tropes or political statements that are contrary to what you are trying to put out there, right? So let's take this very basic, very primal example, right? Good guy is a good guy. Villain wants to kill the good guy, making him the villain. Okay, so what if you make them both white guys? Right, so there's no racial tones there, and there's no, misogynistic tones there. But now you've created a story about two white guys, and we've had a lot of those. A lot. For a very long time. Alright, so you make your villain a man of color. Well, now you're playing into negative racial stereotypes, so that's not great. Same problem if you make him a woman. Okay, so you make your hero a person of color, and the villain is white. Well, now, there's some political undertone to that as well. Again, it doesn't have to be out there and stated as a racial issue for somebody to read that into it. And if you make your hero and your villain people of color, well, then you've got a whole bunch of other people mad at you for a whole different reason, because now you're causing white genocide. So to summarize, politics in your story is not something you will ever be able to entirely avoid. However, if you wish to minimize the amount of social justice and political issues in your story, the best thing to do is to just make your villain evil in a very primal way. They want to cause some sort of harm to the hero that the audience will not want to have happen to a good person. They want to kill them. They want to steal something from them. They want to beat them in a contest, like a boxing match or something like that. That is, something that is easy to get emotionally invested in. If you want to learn a lot more about primal storytelling, I will refer you to one of my primary storytelling Bibles, Save the Cat. Blake Snyder talks about primal storytelling and what it means a lot in this book. I recommended it before, can't recommend it highly enough. Before you ask, I know there's a new Save the Cat for novels out. I have not read it yet. I will. Thank you. I've heard a lot about that book since it's come out. Thank you so much to That Ninja for the question. I hope that you and others found the answer helpful. A reminder to the rest of you that my $5 patrons on Patreon, like That Ninja, are the only ones who can ask questions for me to cover in future videos. They also get these videos 2 weeks ahead of everyone else. If that sounds good to you and you want to be one of those awesome and incredibly attractive individuals, check out my Patreon in the description below. You can also get the Writer Wednesday t-shirt. It tells people you're a writer so you don't have to. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next Wednesday. Bye!